We want to start off with a reminder that we are not doctors. Before you make any changes or try something new, always consult with your doctor and medical team first. Chronic illness can vary from patient to patient, so it's always best to consult with your own doctor for what is best for you.
Hello and welcome to IBD Determined. I'm your host, Mason Harvey, and I have Crohn's disease. I speak from the role of a patient.
And I'm Michelle Harvey. I'm your other host. I am Mason's mom, and I speak from the role of a caregiver. And today's episode is about what we did yesterday. So this is going to be kind of like a recap because I think it was important and it was kind of fun.
It was fun. It was fun and important.
Yeah. So basically our hospital, our children's hospital, Rady Children's Hospital in San Diego, puts on an IBD day.
Cool.
Yeah, they do it once a year. And I don't know if any of you out there have your own, like you
Yeah,
go to
maybe
your,
there's like different days that they have or something like that.
maybe your hospitals do these.
Maybe they don't do it
Yeah, and if not, maybe you'll listen to this and go, "Hey, this would be a great suggestion,"
for your hospital.
because yeah, it's always a good opportunity for people to hang out with other families. You get to meet other kids and
Yeah.
teenagers that have this.
The same disease.
Yeah, and you get a chance to hear from a whole team of doctors who speak on IBD and invite you to ask questions. So we're very thankful to Rady Children's for providing that, and to all the doctors who
Oh, yes.
spent their Saturday morning with all of us.
Yeah, same on Saturday morning.
Yeah, we had to get up early.
Oh, yeah, we did.
We're like, well, what better way to spend a Saturday than to get up early and head down to a hospital and hear
Hospital.
all about IBD?
IBD,
Yeah,
yeah.
great thing to do. So when
Really
we
fun.
got there, they have it in a really nice center. It's set up great. They have food, drinks. You also get to meet the GI staff. So like Bernie is like one
Bernie,
of
we
our
got to meet
heroes.
Bernie. He's one of the people that fights the
He
insurance,
helps us fight insurance.
he does.
Yeah, he's he turns everything in, and
Without him, I wouldn't be
he's
on
the
these
phone call you get when something isn't approved, and you get a phone call from Bernie and he'll say, "Hey, this is what's going on, and then this is what I need." And so he is a huge help for all of us. So, everybody doesn't really see Bernie. We hear Bernie. We talk to him
Yes.
on the phone a lot. And
It's cool.
yeah, so it's cool. It gave us a chance to get to meet him and see him in person. We have before because he fought so hard. One time our doctor brought him into an appointment just to say hi to us because it had been a really tough
Yeah.
struggle, and we were so thankful for him.
Insurance is wild.
Yeah, so we got to see like all kinds of different people on
Yeah.
the team.
I was thinking
And
my old nurses too.
Yeah.
Nurse Robin is so cool to
Yeah.
see her. Because when we first went to the hospital, she originally worked for my doctor, Dr. B. And then now she works for
Dr. Wong,
Dr.
who you've also had too.
Well, I also
When
had,
Dr.
yeah,
B was on
when-
maternity leave, we
yeah.
had Dr. Wong, she's also the medical director of the IBD Center. So she's
Yes.
another great doctor. We also got to see a lot of the other nurses and meet some new people in the staff. And
So cool.
so yeah, so pretty neat. And it's really neat how you get to see them in a different environment than in a clinic setting. And so it's a little more relaxed. And
You don't get to see the nurses like, we're going to give you an injection today.
yeah. So what we're going to kind of do is I think we just like to tell you how the day went. If you do want more information, we will be going further in depth with all of these. I think we
Next
can,
episode?
yeah, probably like the next 3 episodes
wow.
because there was a lot of
That was-
information. And I think it's very important to share with you guys just in case you don't get to experience this because there's a lot of things, answered and a lot of good questions. So I took notes like I was in college.
When we got there, I'm just listening and I'm like, I don't understand most of the stuff they're saying, but I'm still listening. And I look over and she's got her notepad and she's got stuff all over. She's writing.
Got my phone. I'm taking pictures. Like back in the day, so it's like acting like I was in college, but I didn't want to miss anything. And I really
did it.
Yeah, I don't think I did. So I wanted to use it so we could use it with you guys and we could share what we learned because it's straight from the doctors. And I think there's a lot of people on this team that you would appreciate. So without that, let's move along. I don't want to bore you too long with all these details. We'll just jump into it and we'll talk with you about how the day went. So, you all sit down. They bring up the medical director of the IBD Center, who is Dr. Wong, and she went over kinda like everything, like IBD. She kinda did like an overview. She was the one who introduced everything.
And
So
then the other people that she would bring up
yeah.
later went into things in more accuracy.
Right,
Yes.
and we'll kinda tell you what everybody talked about. Again,
Mhm.
not gonna go into
Yeah,
detail on this,
because those
but
are what the other episodes are for.
what would be helpful is if you're watching and there's something you wanna hear more about, make
Yeah.
sure to let us know because when we talk about that specific portion of this episode in another one, we might know more to address or make sure one of your questions is answered.
Mhm.
So let us know if there's anything you're like, "Oh, that's interesting. I'd like to know more about that," and we'll see what we can do.
Yes.
So, some of the things, do you remember, I mean, we have our cheat
I
sheet
have the
here.
cheat sheet, so I'm probably just gonna read the cheat sheet, but I don't really remember what's the entire I do remember some things, but,
Yeah.
not all of it.
But I have yes, I have
Yes.
all the notes here,
It's really
so
the
you're
cheat
in
sheet
luck.
and not
Yeah.
my memory.
So the first thing she went over was the age of disease onset matters because again, this is pediatric. This is not adult IBD we're
Mhm.
talking. So pediatric is, as we've said before, more severe. It is not treated the same. So when somebody, kind of like the example they gave, like when your, aunt says that she knows somebody with this, it's not going to be the same unless that is a child. I mean,
Yeah.
it might not still be the same, but
No.
it's
Well, it's different for everyone, but yeah.
right, but when adults are compared to other adults they know, it's very different than pediatrics. So, just to they kind
I
of
kind of know about that. With an adult, if an adult goes into a flare because they're trying to find a different biologic or they haven't found one yet, so they're trying to find one. While they're looking for a biologic, they can put them on steroids, and an adult
mhm,
doesn't need to grow, and so the steroids won't really do anything with height or
right, your
growing.
growth, yeah.
So it will be fine with that. But when you're a kid, you have just a little bit of time to grow, especially when you're a teenager. And so you don't want your kids to be on steroids because then they won't be able to grow as much and they're going to be shorter. Nothing wrong with being shorter, but you
Yeah,
want them to
to
get,
your
yeah,
potential,
and you want
right.
them to grow as naturally as they can
Mhm,
without being held back or pushed
right,
forward.
very important. Then after that, she went to the natural history of IBD, kinda talking about some other statistics and some other numbers. Again, we'll go into this more later, we have all our notes. And then they start talking about treatment options, which were things like medications, surgery,
Oh, that's fun.
diet, I know, and mind and
Yeah,
health, and so these are all aspects of ways to treat IBD, not just one way, but multiple ways that you treat this. So that was a really interesting one.
definitely.
And then after that, they start talking about something that I think is going to be a really popular topic, which is
This
biosimilars.
is probably the one I'm most interested in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that's going to affect everybody. This
Yeah.
is something that is, some of these medications are coming up where they can now be, well, duplicated is not really the word, but they are able to be created so similarly that they can be called a biosimilar and be used to treat the disease. It's like what they talked about was, are these biosimilars
As effective.
what is their
Mhm. Oh,
interchangeability?
okay.
Yeah, but
Yeah. How
yeah, which
effective
is
are
what
they?
how effective they are. Are they going to have the same effectiveness as their, brand name counterpart?
I feel like it might for some people might even work better depending on, like, what's in it.
Yeah, I think that's something our doctor had said. She'd had one who actually did better on the biosimilar than they
Mm,
did on the name brand
that's
one,
interesting.
which she said was interesting.
Yeah.
So
The biosimilar version, isn't that one not as pricey? Mm.
that's what it
Yeah,
is. Yeah,
okay.
it's a much cheaper option, and
If the
so
cheaper version works for you, great.
yeah, so
I'm happy
insurance
for
is
you.
jumping on it, and a lot of you have been probably getting notices about these from your insurance saying, "Hey, we're not going to cover this, XYZ anymore, but we are going to cover ABC over here,
Mhm.
and you're going to take this one. It's a biosimilar." So a lot of people get nervous because if something is working with
You
this
don't wanna
disease,
change it because
you don't want to
if
change
you
it.
go off of what you're on, depending on what you are on, it
Yeah.
might be different for you, but if you go off of something off of a treatment that you're on, there's a chance you'll grow antibodies to it, and then when you try going back to it, yeah, it won't work.
Right. So it's
That's not good.
it feels a little risky and it's something that I think a lot of us have questions on. So
High risk, high reward.
I was happy to see that they covered this. So I was really happy they addressed that.
Mhm.
So and they talked about how they will handle them too. So that'll be a great topic, and we're going to talk about that on another episode because that deserves its own time. And so the next thing they went and talked about is the way they measure health and remission. So it was that pyramid, where they had
Yes,
the
that
pyramid.
the health and remission period.
Yeah. So we have a whole episode on remission and what it
You should totally
is.
go check it out.
Yes, you can check it out. We'll have it posted for you guys so you guys can check on it. But this what they did is they talked about how and this can be very like they said depending upon the medical provider. So this was their way that they did measure health and how they check for remission and how they determine what level of remission you're in. And then they talked about after that the goals of this therapy and how to achieve remission and, basically what is the goal of taking, Stellara? What is our goal? So they talked about the goals of therapy, and then they also talked about what happens when people withdraw medications, meaning they think
I'm in remission. I don't need
I don't need
medication
this
anymore.
anymore, and so you stop taking it without understanding what remission is.
Because remission sounds like, oh, you're
Right.
done with the
Because
disease.
if you had, something like cancer and you went to remission, you would stop treatments.
Mhm.
I mean, that may not apply to all cancers,
No, it's
but
yeah,
for a lot of what we hear about, that's how we equate it. So you think that in remission, that means that treatments
are done.
are
Yeah.
stopped. And the thing is, it's not curable. And that's what, that was one of the very first things they said, actually, is this disease has no cure. And so it's just important to remember. So something, again, we'll talk about later. So after Dr. Wong finished introducing everything, she introduced Dr. Bauman, who's
Which is my
actually
doctor.
Mason's doctor, and she came up to talk about research, which was another really important topic. She's working on research
Mhm.
herself. So she said, explain that because some doctors are also academic, which means that they also do research work. So they're, in addition to being like your doctor, she's an academic doctor that also does research. And so that's really important. Research is a lot more important than people give it credit for, I think.
Because without research, we can't find new biologics, new
No,
treatments, what causes
or
Crohn's,
even getting
cures.
biologics approved, getting
Yeah.
treatments approved. It's
So
all
they're like,
really
here's the
important.
proof that this biologic will work for this one,
Right.
and this one won't work.
So when you need it, you're thankful the research is there, but
Yes.
they had to do the groundwork and have that research ready to go.
Take
So,
it for granted.
yeah, something that is important. And so one of the things she pointed out was there's not a lot of research data for kids because more research is done with adults because
Mhm,
obviously it's a little more difficult to do with kids. You are more limited. So there's
mhm.
not a whole lot of research out there for kids. And so
Yes.
that's why this is important when you can volunteer, have the opportunity, it's important. So she talked about the importance of research, which some of the things are kind of like we were just saying,
Access to new treatments.
access to new
Like,
treatments.
for me, the biologics I'm on, they're not FDA approved for kids.
Right.
But they work for me,
Right.
and, it'd be cool if they had more research on it that would allow it to be approved for kids, so if
Mhm.
they needed something, they could just use it without having to get in a
Yeah.
fight with insurance. And
Right.
also, dual biologics is also not FDA approved, which,
Right.
well, for kids specifically, which I am on.
It's
It is
not
new.
it's still hard for even adults to do, so really tough for you guys.
Yes.
So, hopefully with research, you will help future kids too. That's the other thing is sometimes people are like, "Well, why should I help? How's it gonna benefit my child?" Well, maybe it's gonna benefit somebody else's,
Yes, it can
and
save hundreds in the future.
yeah, so that's really important to remember, and there is a huge chance it will help your child,
Mhm.
but it will also help other kids. So that feeling of giving back, they said, is also really important. It's a way you guys can help others too. And she talked about the principles of research and how they have, certain requirements they have to follow and guidelines there. They are responsible to another body that will check over their work. And mentioned how it's always voluntary. There needs to be consent and assent, which is from a parent and the child.
Yeah.
Like if a parent really wants a child to do it and the kid is like, I don't want to, they really do need to make sure the child is on board. They're
Yeah.
not just going to force children into these programs that don't want to do it. And
That's
you
messed up.
yeah, I know. I mean, it's like I think that parents I don't think it's parents that have bad intentions, but
Mm-mm.
I think sometimes kids are like, I don't want to do one more thing.
I don't want more needles.
Yeah, they're like, because remember one of the ones they said they were giving away a free MRI?
And I was like, "Oh, no.
I know, Mason
Heck
turned
no.
looked at me and he's like,
I don't
no."
want an MRI.
So, but it's like, you get and our doctor was kind of joking, she's making it funny, like, you get a free MRI,
Give me
like,
money. Give me a free gift
and
card to Starbucks or
some do
something."
compensate with money too,
Yeah.
as well.
I
So
don't want an MRI.
I know. So there's different types of research programs. Some require you to fill out just a couple extra like quizzes, questionnaires. Some
Yes.
may require a little more blood work, but if you're already giving blood at the time, then that's not a huge deal. But then some may require like something bigger, like an MRI or something like that. So
CAT scan,
yeah,
whatever.
so you can withdraw from any of these at any time too. They're very specific. You can do that anytime. And then they went over all the research opportunities that were available at our hospital. And some of you may have some available at your hospital and reach out. If you're interested to see if your child can participate, reach out at your local hospital to see how you can help. And Like, for us, they said they will approach us. Like, if
Yes.
Mason was to fall into a category where he qualified for the research, they would approach us. So, some of you might be like, "Well, how do I know if they're doing research? I haven't heard of this." And that might just be because your child doesn't fall into that category.
Yeah.
The next person they brought up after Dr. B was another doctor, Dr. Nguyen, who is the adolescent psychologist. And we had met her before. Very nice,
Mhm.
really, really cool person. She went over kind of everything, the mental health aspect of this disease, because this is a big picture. So, they want to address this as well. And we also have our mental health episode we did. And so we'll be doing this again, though, talking about what she discussed in another episode. It's really important. So she started with a drawing, looked kind of like a roller coaster.
Yes.
And it
Which
went,
causes roller
yeah,
coaster
and it kind of went over the
emotion.
adjustment process. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
all your emotions. And it went over the adjustment process from when you're diagnosed and the many feelings that go on,
The chaos that ensues.
which you can relate
Yeah.
to. And so a lot of it.
Especially for if you are if you have been recently diagnosed.
Yes. This would have been very important, and it's important for parents to see because this really gives you insight into what they're going through, what thought processes might
Mhm.
be there.
Just going on inside.
Yeah, this is just as
Internal
important. It's all
intestines and
important. And the
mind.
mind, it's all as important. So, she also went over statistics, and she addressed like how depression can look, how anxiety is, low like things like low self-esteem, low quality of life, poor social functioning, things like that that affect these kids. And like was interesting because we'll talk more about this later, but how depression can look different in
Mhm.
kids. She went over different coping methods to help kids, which was pretty interesting. And then the evolving role of parents, which is also the evolving role of patients. We did evolving role of parents and patients because in the beginning, like they said, the parent starts off like the CEO.
Mhm.
Then at the end of the process, when the child is transitioning to adult medicine, they become the CEO. And so you kind of
Yes.
switch positions. So the importance of preparing your child and guiding them into that transition so they are able.
I thought that was pretty interesting.
It is.
And
Like,
then I'm like, oh yay! In a few years, I get to be the CEO, which means I have to pay the taxes and sign up for the appointments. And oh
right, you
god,
get to order all the I know, but we'll still be there to help
Lord,
you, but
please have mercy.
we'll definitely always be there to help,
Yeah.
but it's just really important to give that independence to you and to other kids so you feel confident you can handle it too. So yeah, just important to empower your kids, and so that was kind of an interesting thing we'll talk about later. And then they talked about evidence-based intervention, the importance of psychology support, and they brought up a few relaxation apps, which I'm gonna check out. I haven't got to check them out yet. I wrote it down, but we'll talk about those too, which is kind of neat. Like there's some apps you can do this. She said it was very good for parents to also do this as well as the patients. So we're gonna look more into that. And with that, she was
Yes.
done.
Yes.
And then we brought up another popular person
The
yesterday.
dietitian.
Yeah, so she's a clinical dietitian and she has an IBD specialty. And
Mhm.
we actually had her name's Emily, and she worked with us when Mason was first diagnosed. She kind of took us through that major flare phase
Yeah.
and helped us out and gave us a flare diet and lots of advice.
Of what you can eat and what you can't eat, especially while in a flare, and the
Mhm.
different diets that there are, which there's quite a bit of diets,
Yeah, and
different
so
ones.
that's why I think this definitely deserves. That's why these are things we can't all cover
Mhm.
today, but I want to go over what she did because we have our what we talked about with what we found on like the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation website and a few others in regards to diet. So it's always interesting to hear from a dietitian and get a different perspective. So another episode.
Yes. Another episode soon to be here.
Yes. And so some of the things she talked about was the effect on growth, which you
Mhm.
we kind of mentioned before. So having, how important it is for kids to be recognized that this affects them differently.
Mhm.
And so diet can affect your growth.
'Cause
It,
especially when you're in a flare and you're not getting as much
yeah,
nutrition. Oh, yeah, I heard a fact that steroids can also, stop growth.
yeah,
If you're in a flare and you're not getting the correct nutrition, you won't grow as much either.
right.
So, there's kinda, like, 2 things there
Right.
you gotta worry
There
about.
is. There is. So that's why diet for kids plays a role in that aspect too. So
Mhm.
you have that growth and then immunity, healing, energy, your mental health, and just performance.
Performance.
So these are all things that diet can help with. And so she went over some statistics, kind of like what Mason was talking about on malnourishment from the disease
Disease.
and how you have a higher risk of hospitalization,
That's not fun.
No, not not at all, and it's scary too, you know, it's a difficult thing when something you can appear well from the outside, but in
But
your body,
you're yeah.
it's not
You're telling me
processing
things are
correctly.
messed up.
Yeah, so that's important to understand too. It's very important for parents to know, and then she went over foods when you're in a
Mhm.
flare and
What not to eat and
right.
what to eat.
Yeah, this disease is so individual, she also stressed that. So just because these are things that she talks about doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna be
It's gonna be there for
universal.
your kid. It's gonna be different for everyone.
Right.
Cause like, for me, I don't really have any trigger foods, but if I am in a flare, it's obviously good to try to eat,
Mhm.
cleaner foods. If you eat things that are, say, greasy or spicy or something like that, it can really, mess with the digestion tract.
Yeah, so those are
So you wanna eat
things
things like eggs and rice and things like that are
right.
more soft,
Yeah,
which
is
I just
important.
basically just said the entire next
Yeah,
episode.
well,
Yeah,
that's
we
not
got
the
more
entire one.
topics.
Yeah, we're okay, we still have more to talk
Yeah, we
about,
got
so
more to talk about.
yes.
That was just a sneak peek, okay,
Yeah, that
guys?
was more of a teaser. What if you tune
This
in?
makes you wanna tune in next time, okay?
Right, and so we'll go over those specific foods, and maybe even if I can print out, find that printout, I have it online, but the for the flare diet too, what they gave us. So that's her tips on that, and then food for day to day when you're not in a flare, some ideas and
Mhm.
things that you can eat that keep you healthy, and I think it's good for anybody, really.
Yes.
A lot of stuff she mentioned is just like, "Well, I would eat that way anyways."
Mhm.
That's good to do. And then she went to trigger foods, which are those foods that
You want
can
to avoid while in a
right,
flare
and
or,
yeah,
that might trigger you.
there's a lot of you out there who have a lot of trigger foods, and you know what it is. You know what you can't eat. It
Yeah.
makes it difficult for a lot of you for if you wanna go out to eat or hang out with friends, it's tough.
Also, like, something that's interesting is, like, like, for me specifically, I can drink normal milk, and then if I'm in a flare, it's kinda good to go to lactose-free
Right.
milk,
Which is
which is kinda
interesting,
just
right?
interesting.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's just to be safe, but it's interesting why we do that.
Because she talked about things to avoid and things to include, and lactose
Yeah.
was one of those things
And also,
that
hard cheeses don't have as much lactose in
right.
them because they're more aged, so that's good.
Yeah.
Parmesan. Keep in mind, Parmesan is your friend when you're in a flare.
Yeah. Which
Cheddar
I'm
is not.
thankful for. So we'll talk more about that. I think you guys will actually find that really helpful. A lot of you out there are probably going to look forward to that episode. She also talked about supplements and vitamins. That's another really
Mhm.
interesting one. And then I hope I pronounced this right. Curcumin. That is another supplement
Yeah,
that
you
is
got
pretty
it.
popular right now. And I think some of you out there, I know some people personally that are using it. And then there's a new study on coconut water.
Which, how I mean, I don't really know how to feel about
Yeah. Well, I think it's just like with anything, and I because
yeah,
I had saw this pop up actually in, one
the
of the
Croaks
groups
group, yeah.
yeah, and I think I mentioned too, so I'm like, "Oh gosh, somebody's in there," and they're like, "Coconut water is the cure, like, we gotta drink coconut water." And but if you actually read the study, it is if you actually study it, it says that they was with people on treatments. So
Yes.
they didn't compare it was with people on treatments. They didn't compare to somebody not on a treatment, just drinking coconut water. So
I don't like it when someone's like, "Coconut water is the cure," and you're
right.
like, "Well, it's an addition to a treatment."
Right. Well,
It's
people read
just
headlines, and
yeah.
headlines sell stories, and so
Mhm.
people see
Headlines make
that
you wanna read the story. The
right.
headline isn't gonna tell you every single fact
So
about that story, you
it's
gotta read the story.
so important to read the story. It's
Yeah.
so important to read it and to also read the research on it and see if it's been manipulated in any way. So I always do that. If I read something, I do like a deep dive and I'm like, all right, we're going to find out who did the research, what was the research pool. And I look at everything because you could, you could connect anything
Yeah.
if, to anything if you wanted to.
Make sure you research and do not spread any misinformation.
It's important. It is, especially when you're dealing with people's hope
Mhm.
because people
You get someone
it's
really, like,
sad
happy, and then
because 'cause they're
the
so hopeful, and a lot of people keep hoping that that one
magic
answer
cure
yeah.
around.
So I hate when I see that I feel like games are being played with people's feelings and stuff like
Mhm.
that. But there are benefits to coconut water,
Yes.
and so we will talk about that more in another episode.
Episodes.
So then after that doctor, they brought in another doctor.
Which this one is a surgeon.
This was the
The
fun
funniest
one.
of them
Yeah,
all.
they saved him for last.
Yes.
So it's Doctor Lazar, I think, and he is such a cool
He's a cool
guy.
guy, he is a cool guy.
Yeah, like, if you're gonna have a surgery,
He's the one.
he's the one, and you'll be very confident, and I love how he presents and how he talks about it,
Mhm.
I think. So, he came up, and one of the first things he started with is that surgery is not a failure of treatment. said that a lot of people feel like surgery means you failed everything. This is the only hope. This is our last option. And you feel like a failure. And he said, like, failure of treatment is a medical term. That's all it is. But surgery in itself does not mean it's a failure.
No.
So he wanted to talk about like the reasons for surgery, which are to improve your quality of life. That's what it's really all about.
Mhm.
So he went over the reasons you might have surgery, which is number one is to improve quality of life.
Mhm.
That's their goal. And so if you're not getting there with your treatments, but you really want a certain quality of life, surgery may be an option.
Yes.
And for some, it's a cure. So for ulcerative
For
colitis, it's
also yeah,
curable.
for ulcerative colitis, surgery can be
Mhm.
a cure. For
Right. It's not.
Crohn's, no.
No. So he was very distinct on that. So
I think
Crohn's,
we talked about that before.
we
Like,
have.
if there's a Crohn's infested part in the intestine, you cut that out,
Mhm.
it's just gonna go somewhere else. It's gonna find
Yeah.
something else to destroy.
He also went to reasons for emergency surgery because sometimes it's needs to be done and things like resectioning and strictures and things like that. So he went over those as well, which was interesting. And again, we'll be covering all this. So I think we'll do a special episode on this too.
Yes.
And we
Just
will
for this
not
one.
invite your father to that
Oh, yeah.
one to watch or anything.
Yeah, when, we were okay. I don't blame him, but when we're watching the slideshow, because there's a slideshow behind the surgeon, and I'm just watching it because, like, why not?
And there's
I've
pictures.
seen the pictures
Yeah.
from the MRIs or the scopes and things like that, and
Mhm.
I look over and he's like this.
Yeah. He said he was concentrating on the floor and he didn't want to close his
He didn't
eyes
want to
because he
close his
didn't
eyes
want to
'cause
be
he wanted to seem
rude.
like he was sleeping.
But this kind of stuff for him, it's funny because
Yeah.
nothing bothers him. Like,
No.
really, he's really unfazed by everything. And but you start talking about surgeries
Mhm.
and things like that, and he starts to get like, I don't want to hear about this. So I told him next time I said, just
Excuse
excuse
yourself.
yourself,
Yeah.
walk out of the room, and then you can
The
come back. I
surgeon
can
looks
text you when it's over.
surgeon looks over because he's on a taller spot. He looks down. He sees someone like this.
Yeah, because if you're not feeling well and it's just kinda, like, not something and especially if you have kids. I mean, some
Yeah.
of the kids I was looking, I'm like,
They're
"Ooh,
like,
these
oh.
poor guys," like, maybe the older ones, maybe they wanna hear, but some of the younger ones, I'm not sure
Mhm.
how much they're aware of a lot of this. Even
Yeah.
you, I mean, it's kinda like a, "Wow," but at the same time, it's educational, so you're aware of it, and
However,
it's
there was a plus. The video didn't work.
yeah, there was a video we were gonna watch, and it didn't work.
He was like, let's see if the video works. Then he's like, don't work.
Didn't wanna watch that because you were like, "I'm good."
I'm good.
Yeah, but I mean, there's pictures and they explain different types of surgeries they do and the reasons why. But there's a lot of cool innovations and things that they can do to help. So I think if anything, surgery is scary to anybody, but I think if you look at it as a way to help and you have a surgeon that you trust, think
Mhm.
it's something that's just part of your quality of life and your care with this disease.
Yeah.
And things are changing with
Mhm.
treatments, and when people resist treatments and try to find other ways to go around it, some are successful. You might have mild disease. It all depends. Again, these are based on there's mild, there's moderate, and there's severe. So it all depends where you're placed as well. What treatment your doctor decides is best for you. Then he went to types of surgeries, which we talked about, and that was, it doesn't bother me. I don't
No.
think it bothers you too much. We were fine. He talked about ileostomies, proctocolectomy, and J pouches, and those are different things that happen, and we'll
Yes.
talk about them more in another episode. So, kind of like what I liked that he did is he presented surgery as like part of treatment
Mhm.
and not
A
always the
type of treatment.
necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like it's not something you always have to jump to, and there's decisions you can make. And so I really liked how he presented it, and I really
I did
appreciate
too.
him. I'm always
Yes.
thankful he speaks. After that, the medical team was done speaking, and so we took a break, and there's
There's
another
little
room.
yeah, there's little booths,
Mhm.
and, there was a Crimson Class Foundation,
We got to see
booth too.
Iris.
Yeah, we got to see Iris.
Yeah, one of our favorite people.
And
So
they had a Crimson Class Foundation, pizza cutter, so that was cool. I took that, of course.
yeah, you did.
Yeah,
He's
I'll
like,
thank you.
yeah, he was all excited because
I
it's
didn't
your.
take it. It was that
Mhm.
they were just having them to give to people, but
Yeah,
yeah,
that was one of the things he was like, "Oh, I'll take one of those."
I'll take a pizza cutter.
Yeah, and so they have different booths, different people there to talk to you about different things that may apply to
Mhm.
your life with IBD, which is really helpful. And then after that, they had another session and they had one for the adults that could go into like a caregiving, another like meeting. And I
Mhm.
did that last year.
Yeah. We didn't do that
This
this
year I
year.
didn't because Mason was hungry and ready to get lunch, and so we're like, "Well, we'll just take off." But then there's another room with Camp Oasis. So Kernza Class Foundation had set up a room for kids to go
That's
in
pretty cool.
while the parents went to the meeting in the other room. The
They
kids
have
could
little
go in there.
activities and
There's
everything.
teenagers, yeah, and they could have it was pretty cool. I ended up I missed out on part of it.
Yeah.
Jason, his dad went with
I
Mason,
was like,
so
she's not gonna know where we are.
yeah, he's like, "Mom is not gonna find us." And, you're probably not wrong. I have a very hard time with directions, so there's no signs, so I didn't know where they were.
Mhm.
But, I mean, I think there were signs, but they closed all the doors.
Yeah, they closed
And
all the
so I didn't know
doors.
which door it was, and
I
so
think there were 2 doors going into it.
yeah, there were, and I didn't know that,
Yeah.
and so I'm
It's
like,
confusing, it's fine.
yeah, and I don't wanna, like, start opening doors and, like,
Yeah.
popping my head in, and
Imagine
who
this door
knows?
opens and the kids are like
Yeah. I didn't know. So because I ended up in another room and I instead of going to the caregiving one because I did that last year, I was thinking we're gonna leave. So I was like hanging out in the hallway and then
just
I ran
waiting.
into another mom
Mhm,
and she was cool to talk to. So we just kind of hung out. We talked about and her son is incredibly brave. I don't
mm.
She was telling me that he doesn't even flinch with infusions. Like he
Wow,
never did.
wow.
Yeah, and they were amazed, but she said it was like hard for her to watch, but
Mm,
he was like, "It's alright."
that's cool.
So, yeah, I was like, "That's amazing." So I got to meet him because he came out and they ended up leaving. They took off, but I was still standing there, and then you guys came out, and somehow we ended up back in the Camp Oasis room, and
Because they were showing the Reggie project.
yeah, so Mason was like, "I want you to see this." So I was like, "All right, I'll head in there." And Mason handed out the Reggie
Mm,
project. We brought the like cardstock printouts of him to hand out. So if kids want to cut them out, they can and they can
yeah,
take a picture. So Mason explained all that
everything.
to the kids.
And then somehow I end up reading my entire, not average slice of cheese
One of
piece
the
of it.
kids
Yeah.
recognized you. He's like,
Yeah. Because
"Yeah."
when I was handing out the papers, Reggie's on the piece of paper.
Yeah.
And when the kids is like, "Wait a minute,
Yeah.
you're the person who created that book?" I'm like, "Yeah, I am." He's like, I actually got that book when I was at
I think in the
in
fusion
the
center.
infusion center, I think, yeah.
Yeah, and so then the Camp Oasis, the counselor, she's like, "Oh, how many of you have read this book?" And so some doctors' hands went up who were in the
Yeah,
room, one of the nurses and
the kid.
one of the
Yeah.
counselors also so besides the other child who
Yeah, the
read
child
it.
too. Yeah.
We always carry a copy, so in case we see a child who needs it, we will hand
So
them one.
so
Uh,
I actually read it to everyone. So for the first
yeah.
time, I took out the book and I read it to everyone. I read a
Yeah.
page, show them the picture, read the page, show them the
You were
picture.
just like a teacher. You did
Yeah.
a really good job
They're like,
and
"Well, what would I do?"
yeah, no, you did
Yeah, I
great.
did great.
And I think it was cool for
Thank
the
you.
kids to it was because you're with people who get it and
Yeah.
they understand. And I think it was like the first time you got to
Read it to
read
a
it.
group of kids that what well, I don't think I've really read it to a group of
No,
anyone.
no, just online,
Yeah, just online
but
and on
in
the news thing,
person.
I did read a little
Yeah.
bit of it, some pages of it on
But
the
in
news.
person, it was kind of the first
Yeah, it's
time.
one of the
And
first times. It's pretty cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that was neat. I think it's really cool that they have that opportunity. Camp Oasis comes there and does
Mhm.
that. And I think even if any of your hospitals, I would hope that maybe if you have one of these IBD days that Camp Oasis is there too. So it was a neat experience. So I'm glad I actually ended up in that room and got to see that
Yeah.
because I would have been like,
What,
"What?
I missed that?
You missed it." So,
I missed it.
but your
Oh my
dad did take
gosh.
video, so I would
Yes.
have got to see it.
I'm
So
surprised he was actually able to take a video.
I know well, his phone is full.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, that's
So
a problem.
yeah, and we didn't bring the GoPro.
Oh, dang it. No,
So
not the GoPro.
yeah, that would have been cool. We could have, we did, but at any rate, we figured it out. We got our video
Mhm.
for ourselves. We had a little bit of that, and I took some pictures and I put those on Instagram, which this is a perfect time to segue because we're just about
Oh,
done.
yes.
That was we went and got lunch afterwards.
Yes, and
Mason finally
lunch
got to
was
eat.
great. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, we went to Grand Slam
Yeah.
Pizza
The
and
pizza there is good.
yeah,
And,
so
what is it?
pasta
The pasta
salad.
salad. Jeez, I who knew pasta salad could be so good? I
Yeah.
love it.
So we went and yeah, had one of Mason's favorite foods
Mm,
and we celebrated and had fun and took that
yes.
home
Don't
and
worry, we did not eat Reggie.
no, it's kind of messed up how you read the pizza story and we're like, we're
Yeah.
hungry. And then we're like, let's go get
Let's eat
pizza.
pizza specifically.
So if you want to see any of those pictures, you
Mhm.
can go to Team IB Determined on Instagram and you can see Mason reading to the kids. There's a picture. And if you want to see the kids and see what Camp Oasis, a couple of counselors, we took a picture for the Reggie Project.
Mhm.
So it's on the Reggie Project on Instagram
Instagram.
as well. And if you guys are really enjoying what you're hearing and you want to listen more, You can check us out on any podcast station like Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts.
And there's a link to all of those on Buzzsprout, right?
There is,
Yeah.
and we include that link.
YouTube also has a
They
podcast.
do.
It's called YouTube Podcast, and that's a perfect segue into YouTube itself. Because if you want to watch us and you want to hear us,
Yeah.
make sure to go to YouTube. And if you are on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to be notified every time we post a video, make sure to hit that bell icon.
Yeah.
And have we been getting
RC Sparks.
Oh yeah, we got RC Sparks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if any of you guys realize. So he is someone who has many followers. He's very
Mhm.
popular on YouTube. But years ago, he was someone that before Mason got sick, you watch all the
Yeah, I
time
watch it
because
all.
he worked with RC cars
Yeah.
and very popular guy.
He also
Over
has
3
IBS
million
or
or
IBD.
4 million viewers.
Yeah.
And one of the episodes, he had announced he had Crohn's disease, and Mason at the time
It's like, I don't know what
wasn't
that
sick, so
is.
it didn't really phase us.
Mhm.
I mean, Mason was very sad. I think we were almost, like, crying, like, we felt so
Mhm.
bad hearing his story, but I didn't the word Crohn's didn't stick with me. I just
Mhm.
remembered he had a diagnosis, and we felt it was awful for
Yeah.
him. So then when Mason was diagnosed, all of a sudden, I was like,
Crohn's disease.
"Mason, that's what he has," and I was like, "No way," and
Yeah,
so
that's pretty cool.
I just reached out and I thought I'll never hear from him, but I did. And he
He
talked to
answered back?
Mason.
Yeah.
Yeah, he sent Mason an RC car in the hospital that Mason could drive around the hospital room.
And we set up a little obstacle course for it.
Yeah,
It's pretty cool.
and so we recently reconnected because it's been a while and since we all kind of talked and then he reached out to me again and it was pretty exciting.
Yes.
So
It's
he's
pretty cool.
yeah, so he actually yeah, he commented on our last video and that was really exciting to see. So it's cool to have his friendship and support
Yes,
and
definitely.
we also support him. You know, it's a tough IBD is a tough road for a lot of people, and we're just thankful for the community, and I'm thankful,
Definitely.
yeah, we have all that. But we'd like to hear from all of you.
Everyone. I
So
hear from everyone.
yeah, and
See you in the next
let us
episode.
know out of this one. Maybe say, hey, if you could talk about what the doctors talked about with diet first. Let us know if there's any of you want to hear something first. We'll do that next.
Yes, because we
So
always want to listen.
otherwise, if we don't hear anything, it's just
Yeah,
going to be
it's
left
just
up
fun.
to
Yeah.
us. We'll choose. Maybe you're okay with that, but yeah,
Yeah.
if you want anything different, you gotta let us know.
Yes.
So, thank you guys for listening.
Yes, thank you so much.
Have a great weekend, work week, school week,
Summer
almost.
break, spring break.
Yeah, summer break is
Yeah, summer
not
break is far
it's
away.
far away.
We can imagine it's close.
Yeah, wishful thinking. Just
Yes.
spring break. Yeah,
Spring
so
break.
just a little week off, but still something. So,
Yes.
thanks again for everyone for listening, for the support, and we will see you guys next week
In the next episode.
on the next episode. Yep. Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
We hope you will stick around, tune in, and reach out to us with your own journeys. We are excited to give you an inside view of what it takes to be a caregiver and what it's like to be a patient.
And most of all, we hope you'll maybe be able to apply something you hear on here that might help you in your own life. Sometimes life changes, and it's all about how you handle the journey.